that where you live, it's warmer than it is here in Columbus, Ohio, because it is cold. It got cold a little bit more quickly than I thought it was going to. And of course, I'm not a fan of cold weather. So, I'm not real happy about it. But as I always say, it's better to be here to say how I don't like the cold weather than to not be here at all. My thoughts today are for the people who are confined because of illness, because of any number of situations. There are some people who are going through treatments for devastating diseases. There are people who are confined to rehabilitation places because of some catastrophic stroke. There's so many people who cannot get up and out. And so, what I like to do, and what I do is sometimes go outside and take a deep breath for myself, but then take a deep breath for all of the people who cannot go outside. We take it all so much for granted. So, I hope that you'll do that too. What if all of us took a breath for somebody who cannot do it, a breath outside for someone who cannot do it? I don't know what good it would do, except that it feels like it would make a difference in the universe. And so maybe that's something that you can think about doing. My other thing, of course, is asking if you have voted yet. Early voting is open in every state, I think, and you should take advantage of it. Please, 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 not register to vote, because if you haven't registered, you can't vote anyway. But vote, vote, vote. You can do it absentee. I did mine absentee because I don't want to be in a long line on election day. And if you are in a place where you think there are going to be really, really long lines, do it early. Go down to your board of election or wherever it is that your voting machines are and vote early. Just make sure you get it done. Take somebody with you, call your family and your friends to get them to do it, because there's we're at a very critical time. We can either stay as we are in this country, which has a lot of problems, or we can not vote. We can stay away from the polls and let the country just slide into fascism with all of these people wanting to take away our rights in power, and that's what they want to do. Then there was one other thing I wanted to kind of bring up with you. Now we're hearing, with the political ads that are coming out, the angry black women. They're calling Stacey Abrams and Val Demings angry black women. Number one, we have a right to be angry. I'm just saying. Let's just put that out there. We have a right to be angry. But number two, we have got to not buy into that. We have got to say out loud, we have a right to be in. We have to push back as opposed to being quiet and just letting them say what they want to say. I want us to push back, and I want us not to be ashamed. Our anger is what propels us, has always propelled us as Black people, as brown people, as Native Americans. Our anger is what has propelled us to push into the evil that wants to keep us oppressed. So be angry. It's okay. That's okay. Support the sisters. The other thing is, don't listen to the drivel, all of the stuff with these political ads about, these judges are going to the activist judges, the Democratic activist judges, the liberal activist judges. That keep using that term, that phrase, activist judges. And they talk about them letting criminals go free and all of that. Don't listen to that. Don't listen to that. When those ads come on, I am telling you that we have a moral obligation to ourselves to protect our spirit. Don't listen to that. Don't listen to that. And keep on looking for the truth. Keep on standing in the truth. If they want to talk about activist judges, let's talk about the three that are on, or the three of the four that are, or the five, how many are on the United States Supreme Court. Don't let them get away with that. We have power and we have agency and we need to use it. So, okay, that's my mini sermon before this reading. Today we are on day 13 and it's called The Power, the Pain of Being Nameless. And it says, do not fear. Do not fear for the terror of the night or the arrow that flies by day. Do not fear. One of the most painful components that result from being different is that your status is as a viable and valuable human being drops a few notches. For any number of reasons, you are shunned and ignored, and people who you believed were your friends distance themselves from you so as to not to tarnish, damage, or threaten their own positions in life. I don't know if you've been there, but I've been there. In an essay entitled A Strange Freedom, Howard Thurman called it a strange freedom to be adrift in the world of men, to act with no accounting, to go nameless up and down the streets of other minds where no salutation greets and no sign is given to mark the place one calls one's own. We descend into places of toxic isolation for a lot of reasons. In my own life, I found comfort and safety in staying by myself. I lived in foster care for a while and then was adopted by the man whom my mother married. And I suddenly had a sister and a group of people who I was told were my family, but I didn't know them. My mother chose to work as hard as she could to be accepted by this family, which apparently did not like her. They didn't like me either. Um, while she forged forward into the coliseum that hosts the fine game of making new relationships, I retreated into my own space, choosing isolation over making relationships. We do not understand the damage we do ourselves until that self imposed isolation finally reveals what it has done to our capacity to have a full life. In working to keep ourselves free, we have actually set ourselves up to face the most challenging trials that we will encounter alone. In the time of our greatest need, we are ignored. We feel it in a way that we have never felt it before. We realize that living in isolation has made us vulnerable to a type of pain we never knew existed. But this kind of pain is not restricted to those who have been isolated themselves. Different groups of people, African Americans, Hispanic, the poor, women, ex felons, Muslims, know this place very well. Both the isolated individual and the ones in groups find themselves living this strange freedom, going nameless up and down the streets of the minds of other people. It is being nameless that hurts so badly. Thurman says that it is our name that marks the claim a person stakes against the world. It is the private banner under which that person moves, which is her right or whatever else betides. And he continues, quote, the name is a person's watermark above which the tides can never rise. It is the thing he holds that keeps him in the way when every light has failed and every marker has been destroyed. It is the rallying point around which a person gathers all that he or she means by themselves. It is their innocence it is their in their announcement to life that they are present and accounted for in all their parts. To be made anonymous and to give it to the acquiescence of the heart is to live without life. It's better to risk the breakup of relationships than to be so afraid of them, like I've been, that you refuse to try to build them in the first place. The poet Audre Lorde wrote, quote, your silence will not protect you. And that is true. Neither will placing yourself in isolation save you from being ostracized for any number of reasons. As risky as it may seem, it is better to be a consideration in the minds of some than to be nameless. In that same Thurman essay, he wrote, quote, to be known, to be called by one's name is to find one's place and hold it against all the hordes of hell. This is to know one's value for oneself alone. It is to honor and act as one's very own. It is to live a life that is one's very own. It is to bow before an altar that is one's very own. It is to worship a God who is one's very own. It is better, in other words, to connect with people so that they know us by name. For better or worse, those connections keep us away from the strange freedom that ultimately kills our souls, whether in times of joy or of pain. Amen and amen. So that meditation actually resonates with me, as you can tell, because I've lived a life of isolation, staying by myself. It started when I was very young, because of the way I grew up, and it just carried over. And I think that there are a lot of people, maybe too many people, who are in that place who will say, I don't have any friends. They're in a hospital and do you have any family? No, I don't have any family. I don't have any friends. That ought not be the testimony of any of us. And this move to be in relationship with people, to have your name known, extends not only to people who look like us or who believe like us, but also to people who don't look like us. We can water down some of the vitriol and the raw hatred that people show against us by getting to know their names and getting them to know our names, so that we are not objects to each other, but we count, we matter, we just matter. And so I'm hoping that that resolution that there is a resolution in your own mind and spirit, or a determination to try to maybe not be so isolated. I work on it every single day. It is so hard when you have lived a life of isolation to change that tide, to change the trajectory, that in order to have the freedom that you need, in order to have the freedom to live and even to fight for justice, as this platform is about, you have to know your name, and other people have to know your name too. This is my story, my lesson, and my lesson to myself, and I hope it is a lesson for you as well. Thank you, all of you who are here. I can't see who you are, but thank you for being here. Thank you for tuning in. I hope that you will share it with your friends and family, and I hope that you will come back next week and bring somebody with you. Have a wonderful, wonderful day, a wonderful weekend. Take good care, and if you're in a cold place, stay